I'm going to call the meeting to, I'm going to call the meeting to order now. This is the City of Meridian Solid Waste Advisory Commission, regular meeting for July 23rd. It is now 3 minutes after 4, and we'll start with roll call. Indicate if you're present. Mark Nelson.
Here.
Andy Arriaga.
Present.
Steve Corey, here. Randy Rabin.
Here.
Bethany Guajardo. Sanjay Dasam. Divya Dinesh.
Here.
And Kuhajian.
Here.
And then we'll move on to ex officio members. Rochelle Klein, should I call on Conrad if we need anything? Thank you. Quorum being present, we'll go ahead and move on with the agenda. Well, first off, adoption of the draft agenda. Hopefully you've had a chance to look at it. Are there any comments on the draft agenda?
Mr. Chair, I would move that we approve the agenda as written.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the agenda be approved as written. Further comments? Sensing the commission is ready for a vote, all those in favor of approving the agenda as written signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, say no. The motion passes. We'll move on to approval of the minutes for the June 25th meeting. Are there any comments or questions about the draft minutes for the June meeting?
I move we approve the minutes for the June meeting.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the minutes for the June 25th meeting be approved as written. Are there further comments? Sensing the commission is ready for a vote, all those in favor of approving the draft minutes as written signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, say no. The motion passes. We'll move on into staff reports now. First item is the quarterly tonnage report. Peter, are you going to give that? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. This report is going to be going over the months of April through June. Get that up in just a second. All right, so we'll go ahead and start out the Okay, quarterly report is for April through June. Our first chart here, pretty typical for what we see this time of the year. I will draw your attention to the trash tonnage, which is the chart on the right side. You'll see that spike in May. So historically, this spike has been, you could associate that with the spring cleanup event, which happens concurrently with, or used to happen concurrently with the trash or treasure event. We no longer do the spring cleanup event. However, with the bulky item program, we still see a spike occur during that month. that's pretty typical with people getting rid of trash or treasure items that they don't use. In the next slide, you'll see some numbers for those charts. And again, on the right, you'll see down in May, trash per household. Again, that spike goes up about 50 pounds per household. In the next slide is our diversion rate. Again, this is pretty typical for what we see this time of year. I did look back at the last couple of years, and actually what I did see is that overall our diversion rates for these 3 months has increased by about 1 to 1.5% over the last few years. So again, encouraging signs. Next, the composition that we've seen for over these 3 months. One of the things that you'll see this quarter that you haven't for the previous two, you'll see that green section there on the top for green waste and organics. That comes through the subscription yard waste carts that Republic Services offers. Looking at those numbers, we have about 1,500 subscriptions or so. So during the summer months, when everyone's cutting their lawn, doing their yard work, we'll see some of our diversion come from that source. Then the last slide is for household hazardous waste. So this shows the last 9 months. They're at the bottom, April, May, and June, just to give a little context behind this. So our HHW site is open on Mondays. So you'll see kind of some discrepancy between the tonnage of April, May, and June. To explain this, April and most months usually have 4 Mondays where they're being collected. May, because of the holiday and how the month was set up, only had 3 Mondays where there were collection sites, and June actually had 5 Mondays where there was a collection site open. The other part of that, though, is that these numbers that we're seeing, the 32 tons, the 23 tons that we saw in March and April, that is indicative of a much higher participation in our HHW program, which again is very encouraging. And for that, I will stand for questions if there are any.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask?
Rochelle.
Thank you. Peter, are the HHW numbers rolled into the diversion statistics, or are they outside of the diversion statistics?
You know, I will have to check on that. I will.
That's a lot of weight.
That is a lot of weight. Let me look at our calculations for that, and I will answer that next month.
Because it might really boost it if it's not.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank
Okay,
you.
thanks.
Members of the commission, any other questions of Peter on the information that's been presented to us? Thank you. With that, we'll move on into new business. The first item under new business is a quarterly report on the Community Recycling Fund. Back on April 1st, our balance in the fund was $104,471. We've received 2 payments over the quarter totaling $1,575. So the current balance is $106,046.75. And I do plan to go ahead and pull together the package that we had on this and go through it over the course of the next month to kind of get back on top of a program so that we can maybe talk in the next couple of months about whether we want to do something with this funding. The timing's good because if we do want to do something, we need to go ahead and submit a request for approval to City Council, and they would want that in January, February, March, or something like that. So it would be good for us, since we don't usually meet in November and December to pick this up early in the fall. So with that, are there any questions about the Community Recycling Fund?
I have a comment, and I think it'd be really great if MIAC helped this year to decide what we do with those funds.
That would be great. Other questions or comments? Oh, Lorelei, Director.
Thank you, Commissioners. I did want to just mention that as you're thinking about what to potentially spend this fund on, while it does seem like a large number and kind of a little bit frustrating that we haven't spent it on anything, it is kind of a one-time, it builds very slowly. And we would just caution, we have some pretty big program initiatives, like potentially the composting program, that you may want to leave some funding in there to be able to support the rollout of those types of programs. So while I understand the desire to spend it, we're also close to some pretty big potential changes that could happen in the next couple of years. And having that funding could help with some of those programs. I don't have any specifics, but I would just mention to keep that in mind.
Good advice. Further questions or comments about the Community Recycling Fund? Very good. Then we'll go ahead and move on to the next item, which is Republic Services FY26 rate proposal. Welcome, Alex.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, good afternoon. Thank you for giving me a couple minutes here to talk about Republic Services FY26 solid waste fee schedule. This can sometimes be a somewhat complex topic. Happily, that is not the case this year. Republic is asking for Why don't you just advance it for me, Sarah? Thank you. So Republic Services is asking for a 5.46% increase to overall fees this year. All right. That is in complete alignment with what our contractual arrangement is with them. So to maybe give you guys a little bit of a reminder, or for those that have never been through this before, our franchise agreement with Republic allows for an annual adjustment to the rate schedule. That's based on the consumer price index. We take 90% of that, all right? So the consumer price index for last year was 6.7%. The 6.07 times 90 gives you 5.46. That's where that number comes from, okay? The table below that just gives you a little bit of an idea of some of the components that go into the fee. Trash and recycling services are subject to that CPI. Disposal, separate item, also part of your bill, is actually what the Ada County landfill charges Republic Services to dispose of the trash up at the landfill. That's essentially a pass-through cost. You might remember last month, I was before you to talk a little bit about household hazardous waste. This year, that is also part of your overall bill. We intend for FY26 to pull that out, as we discussed at last month's presentation. The last item there is actually an alternative fuel credit. Republic Services receives a tax credit from the federal government for using fuel-efficient vehicles. So it's their compressed natural gas versus diesel, and they receive a rebate, essentially, and they share that with the city. We, as the city, apply that as a discount to the customer's bill. Okay, so that's what that is all about. Sarah, go ahead and move to the next one. So let's take a look at what an average example for a 95-gallon cart customer looks like for the upcoming year. So you can see the FY25 fee, trash and recycling services, $21.75 today. You'll see about a $1.19 increase, taking it to $22.94. The disposal, which is what I talked about for the landfill, that's a pass-through cost. The landfill is doing a 3% increase on what we refer to as their tipping fees. They're at a $32 per ton tipping fee right now. They're going to go to a $33 per ton. That equates to about 11 cents. And then that alternative energy tax credit is also included in that calculation. So for the average customer with 195 gallon cart, it's about $1.30 increase for FY '26. So it would take you from 25.06 to 26.36. Let me stop there for a second. Questions on that? We do have Republic Services here today if you want to get into any more further detail on that, but I just wanted to make sure we gave you an example of what that looks like for the average customer. Okay, Sarah, go ahead and head to the next one. This slide just gives you a little more detail on what kind of makes up each of those components. We talked a little bit about trash and recycling services. There are several elements in that. There's a fee around the transfer station, the actual collection and hauling, recycling, glass. So you get an idea of what kind of goes into that. Carts and container rentals become part of that. We talked about household hazardous waste going away after this year. And then Ada County Landfill, which is probably important to note, they haven't actually officially adopted their fees yet, but we expect that they will be before their commissioners in August to complete that process. But we have it on pretty good authority that that's what it looks like from the $32 to $33 per ton rate change. So, okay, next one, Sayard. So really kind of going forward, this is our opportunity to sort of show SWAC what the proposal looks like. We would anticipate trying to get in front of council August 12th. From a fee perspective, there is a noticing timeframe that has to occur. There's a public noticing event that occurs over a 2-week period. Public hearing typically with new fees, and then finally resolution gets created. We go before council with the resolution, they adopt it, and then with the hope that the fee can be in place in time for the FY '26 start of the year. So kind of what things look like as far as the schedule goes. So let me stop there. Entertain any questions if you've got them.
I have one question.
Yeah.
Is the fee change the same between residential customers and commercial customers, or do you distinguish between those?
Well, you have in your packet, I don't know if you had a chance to look at it, but there is an entire fee schedule, and actually there's about 240-ish fees, I think, total. And it does vary a little bit. So commercial and industrial customers are a little different because it kind of depends on what service they're buying from Republic. So size of the container, frequency of service, that kind of thing. So it varies a little bit, but if you look at that schedule, you'll notice that almost all of those fees are within that 5 to 6% range. So pretty close, really, overall.
Thank you.
Mhm.
As someone who is new to the council, or newer to the council, I would love to know, even though these rates, from my perspective, seem pretty good, even though it's my first year, what can we do as a committee, as individuals, helping out with MIAC, to help to let people know what they can do to cut down on their own cost or increase divergence? Whatever those things are that we can do that just kind of bulk up all of our programs and show that we have really great faith in society. Maybe I'm just being the person who's in SWAC, who's like, let's make us the gold standard. But if there's anything that we can do, or I can do as an individual or working with MIAC, be happy to, increase the funds coming in or help people to manage their waste costs.
It's a great question. From a contract perspective, fairly defined, right? They have the right to ask for the fee that they do. But in terms of an individual, I would say one of the first things, there are different sized containers, for example. So the smaller the container, the less you pay. So generating less trash, either diverting it to recycling or utilizing household hazardous waste or grass cart, those kinds of things. For the individual, that's an option. Save you a little bit of money if you're using a smaller cart, just as a simple example on that. So, What else? So, Mr. Chair, I didn't know whether you guys wanted to take action on this tonight or not, because obviously you won't be meeting again before we would like to get in front of council. So I'll leave that to you to decide how you want to proceed here.
Would go ahead and quick add, this is a pretty straightforward presentation this year, which is really nice for us. At other times, Republic has recognized that there was some additional lines that they may want. When you get the package, normally, if there's new business lines that are going to be presented, they'll be highlighted in red to help you. But since there's nothing new, this was very straightforward, and it does break down the cost for the recycling center, for the transfer station, and everything else for each of the different residential, commercial levels and stuff. So there is a huge amount of information. In future years, if we have a little bit of difference, the highlights will jump out but anyway, so yes, as Alex mentioned, we now have the opportunity to do what we may want, which can be to just go ahead and pass a motion that this is ready for presentation to City Council, ready to be presented to City Council with a do pass recommendation. You could make recommendations for other things to be considered and such, but with that, the floor is open for any comments that you have on the information that's been presented at this point. So I don't know if there's any further questions or if there's any comments. Now would be an appropriate time to speak.
Mr. Chair, gentlemen, I guess also as a new member of the council, relatively new, first time this year I'm going through this process. My question is tying the rate change to the CPI. Is that typical of how things are done every year? And I guess my question there is the rate change also, I mean, is it that simple, or is it also based on the actual revenue that Republic Services is seeing? Not only the city of Meridian, but the entire Treasure Valley, since, you know, they service the whole valley. Is that a representative of the actual rate increases or costs that Republic is actually experiencing? Makes sense.
Commissioner, I think I'll put it this way. I would say that every municipality has a very different contract approach to this. I would leave it maybe to Republic Services in terms of, you know, talking through any nuances in terms of how they look at that. But our contract with them is a relatively simple one. The 90% CPI is really the mechanism that they utilize with us for that. Do you have anything to add?
Chairman, Commissioners, thank you for having us here. And I would say Alex is correct that each of our contracts are different and structured different in how we approach RPIs every year. But this specific indice is it's CPI garbage trash. So it's very specific to the industry that we're in and the work that we're performing, and follows the costs that are related to that work. That helps.
Thank you.
And I think I do need to add a couple of flavors to this. First one's rather simple. In fact, actually, this CPI we're talking about is for the waste industry within the region. So you may see a CPI for the average person and such that could be a little different, but the number we draw from is one that's very specific to what we're doing. And to go ahead and well, I guess I should say, generally, I suppose the idea is to look and see whether with that CPI adjustment, do all the numbers work? And I think Republic works to make sure that that happens. A couple years ago, we had to have a pretty major labor bump for there was a labor crunch, especially for commercial, CDL certified drivers, that required rather large bump in the monthly fees, about $5 a month but, well, a couple dollars a month anyway. So it's not unheard of that there has to be something large, but Republic will bring the backup for that if ever there needs to be a market adjustment. Further questions or comments?
Well, Mr. Chair, the comment I have is thank you for having a straightforward schedule this year without any major crazy changes, which has been in the past. My takeaway this year is, I think last year we kind of talked about some labor increases related to driver pay. And then this year pulling HHW out to its own line item. Is a change? But what also makes that more visible to everybody, right? So it's not one of those pass-through costs. So I do appreciate that things are presented in a more straightforward manner that I can grasp. We should appreciate it this year, my point.
Another time that we had a major adjustment that we had to do was right after Green Sword and Green Shield from China. The cost of recycling spiked pretty significantly, and as a result of that, we had to make a major adjustment. But again, whenever these happen, there's justification brought to explain the market bump. Further comments, or if people are ready, a motion would be in order.
Mr. Chair, I would move that we proceed with the fee schedule as presented and recommend to council with the due pass recommendation.
I will second that motion.
It's been moved and seconded that the fee proposal is ready for presentation to City Council and that we, SWAC, give it a due pass recommendation. Are there further comments on the, or debate on the motion on the floor? Further comments? Sensing the commission is ready for a vote. All those in favor of forwarding the proposed rates for to City Council for their consideration with a due pass recommendation signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, say no. The motion passes.
Chair, Commissioners, thank you.
Thank you.
That completes our new business. So we'll go into stakeholder updates. I'm going to go into a little different order on this thing, and we'll start off with Timber Creek. Lisa, did you come up? I think I've had some indication of a desire to learn Timber Creek's Meridian / Nampa transition and find out what's going on in your business.
Yes, thank you, Chair and Commissioners, for giving us this opportunity to give an update. I will not go too far in the weeds about every product that we accept at the sites, but as an overview, I want to give kind of just the descriptor between the two sites, and then we'll go ahead and talk about the transition plan that is in place now and goes through June of 2027. So the accepted materials at the Meridian location, which is the transition site focus, are clean wood, waste, untreated and unpainted, so no stain on those. Yard waste, which includes like grass clippings, leaves, branches. And then we have pallets, again, clean, unpainted. And then dimensional lumber, that's no nails or fasteners, just clean wood. The accepted materials at the Nampa location include everything I just listed, but also include the concrete and asphalt that we no longer accept over at the Meridian site. And that's an important piece of information because we used to accept it, we no longer do. For the update on the transition, so for those of you not familiar with the transition plan, that was presented to City Council back in December of 2024. It was that last quarter of 2024 that started the transition, where we put a plan together and made commitments to how we were going to get an entire operation that takes place in Meridian today all over to Nampa by the end of June 2027. And so far with the odor, dust, and volume, I won't go too far in the weeds. I'll leave that for questions, but the odor, dust, and volume are the three areas, and accountability are the four areas that are highlighted in each of the phases. So for phase one, we did meet all of the requirements. Things for odor were stop regularly receiving the cheese waste. On weekends at the Meridian site, conduct experiments of calcium hydroxide, which is lime. Coordinate with Sorrento Lactalis on procurement of equipment for addition of time to cheese at Sorrento plant, blending of the lime into the product, into the waste. The dust, by November 1, we were asked to have no more concrete, asphalt, tile, porcelain, brick, and we were able to stay on task and make that happen. The volume, at least 25% of the inbound WAS coming over from Sorrento needed to be diverted from the Meridian site, and we met that criteria. Accountability was, we needed to present a final transition plan. So we were in Q4, but now we needed to show what 2025, 2026, and half of 2027 could look like. And so we began drafting that. We met those requirements for phase one. In phase two, again with odor, we needed to pilot a full-scale addition of lime to inbound cheese. We had until Q2 to get that completed, and we met that. I just met with Sorrento Lactalis this last week. They actually had a router that was designated for a different project, and they rerouted that to this project. And so that blending is taking place via a new router. So that's one of the ways we were able to do that. For dust, the final crushing of concrete took place. And so we continued to regularly do dust control because the other materials that we accept there do create dust. And then volume, complete engineering for the additional pad. We were able to meet the criteria there. And that's, let me make sure I'm saying this correctly. Oh, we had, please hold. Yes. I want to make sure I get it right. So the final crushing ended at the end of Q1, and then in Q2, we were to begin bringing that down by 50%, and we are on track for that. We're currently there, and that has to do with the construction of the pad as well, and that is being done right now. So we are on track. Everything is in order. We don't see any issues. The Sorrento one was the biggest piece because that was outside of our control, and they cooperated and are working really well with that. Phase 3 is 2026. Phase 4 is 2027, and we don't see anything barring us from meeting those metrics as well. Any questions on that?
Thank you. I definitely appreciate learning about the status of this. Anyway, members of the commission, do you have any questions or comments? Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll move on to Republic. If you've got anything that you want to present to us from stakeholder.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And the only big news for us, first of all, I want to thank all of you who came out and toured our recycling facility. That was really nice, and we appreciate that. If you have any questions, let us know. But We're grateful that you guys are now the spokespeople out in the community to talk about what that was like. Our big news for today, our big update today is we have a GM. So the wait is over. We've been a long time without one. I'd like to invite Chase Cresto up if he would like to come and introduce himself to you guys. So this is our new face of our new GM. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Yeah, my name is Chase Cresto. I'm the new General Manager of Public Services here in the Treasure Valley. Joining us from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, where I've been the GM down there for Public Services for the last 2.5 years, and been with the company for a little over 4 years, and looking forward to working with this committee and the city of Meridian.
Welcome.
Welcome to the Treasure Valley.
Thank you all.
Glad to have you on board, and go ahead and reach out and touch us if there's anything we need to do to pick up and talk about for making waste collection in this area more efficient.
Absolutely looking forward to any of those ideas that come up. Okay, you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That completes everything that's on the schedule. So actually, our next meeting would be August 27th. As always, if you've got subjects you want us to go ahead and pick up, make sure you contact myself or Sayard, and we can go ahead and get them on the agenda. If there's anything else that I've forgotten, an announcement or something, now would be the time to mention it.
Mr. Chair, you asked me earlier today about Recycle a Bicycle. I know it's been a quiet program for a few months. Shell's staff has been sick or in some incapacitated state for a while. So I know that the inventory is high, and we'll start working on a plan to kind of reattack that. But I got my cast off so I can turn a bolt again and help fix a bike. I'm not sure how any of the other crew are doing, but
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Ellison. Yes, we have a long line of people waiting for bikes. So I think we're going to meet most of those needs in the next week, but anybody who's interested in volunteering, we do have a pretty significant waiting list. I'd say of 20 people or more that are in the queue waiting for bicycles. So Mark's hand is better. So we'll be out there Tuesdays generally if anyone wants to join us from like 4 to 6. So thanks.
and I did get the used Commissioner Walters to commit. So, anyway, well, Rochelle and I will touch base and get some more information out after we get a chance to go take a look at where we're at. More to follow.
Thank you. And with that, then I will go ahead and declare the meeting adjourned. That is now 42 minutes after 4. And thank you for what you do for the city of Meridian.